Hey guys, SoCal Val here. You are listening to the Hitting the Turnbuckle podcast.
We're back with an AEW special. It's been a while, Dave.
Yeah, too long.
It's been too long. It's been 85 years since we talked some AEW. Also, welcome to the Hitting the Turnbuckle channel, everyone. Apologies, that's not the usual beginning that we do. You may have seen, before we start, Dave, I need to get this announcement done, but you may have seen on social platforms that we have partnered with Progress Wrestling. Uh, Obviously, big shout out to the team at Progress, Lee McAteer, and everyone involved. We can't wait to partner with you this year. It starts on Sunday when myself and my better half, Rachel, will be attending the Twisted Metal show this Sunday at the Electric Ballroom in Camden, highlighted by Spike Trivet's cage match with Kid Lycos, which should be an end to a feud that's created more carnage than anything else, Dave. But how excited are you about the partnership with us and Progress?
Yeah, absolutely buzzing about it. I'm so proud of you as well, mate. Which I know that might sound a bit cheesy, but you've put so much effort and hard work into the Hitting the Turnbuckle podcast. Yeah, you've just st been steering this ship for a long time now, and all the messages, all the conversations that you've had, the back and forths, all the time you've put into it has really, paid off. Absolutely paid off. And yourself, you're a huge, huge guy on when it comes to indie wrestling. You're a huge fan. You go to a lot of shows. So now to be there in an official capacity with Progress, obviously the biggest UK company there is up there, Progress and Rev Pro really are the top two in my opinion. Um, yeah, just couldn't be happier for you, for Andy, for all of us here at Hitting the Turnbuckle, but particularly yourself. But yeah, great news and good to see it all going viral on social media today. And Progress putting it on their website is a big deal.
Yeah, it blew up the phone, that's for sure, which was nice in the nicest possible way, of course. But yeah, big thanks to everyone at Progress Wrestling. We will see you Sunday. If you haven't already got tickets, go on the Progress website or just follow the links on the Progress pages that they tag in. You will get your tickets for the show. I don't think that there's many left. And of course, if you want to see the show and you see myself and Rachel there, do not be afraid to come up and say hello. We'll be more than happy to greet you. I don't know why we're saying greet you, but just to say hello. It would be great to see anyone at the show on Sunday and going forward, of course. Anyway, moving swiftly on to what we're going to be talking about this week is the week, kind of a week in AEW. We
Yeah.
normally do separate shows, but now we're going to focus it on one main one and cover it all off. Collision this week, they didn't do a collision due to the NBA. I don't know about how I feel about that. I mean, I get it maybe from a ratings perspective, a channel perspective. Obviously, the channel that they're on's heavily involved in the NBA, but could they not have just maybe moved it or moved it to another night?
Yeah, I think perhaps they did do that last time, and it just didn't go particularly well. So as you say, the kind of a little bit of conflict in terms of the NBA being on the same network. Um, so I don't mind it. I was disappointed that it wasn't on, but absence makes the heart grow fonder and all that. And yeah, I think a week off isn't the worst thing to happen. Yeah, I think Rampage is pretty good this week as well. So we perhaps got some more eyes on Rampage when people perhaps don't check it out week in, week out. I think that might have increased the viewership for that. I'm not sure. I haven't seen the numbers. Um, but but yeah, caught me off guard. I didn't realize that it wasn't on, so I went to watch it and it wasn't there.
Didn't appear on the planners.
Yeah,
We'll talk Rampage. I mean, there was a Rampage actually not this week, just gone the week before, done its highest rating in ages. And
yeah,
what I've liked about it, and obviously I've been reviewing the Rampage shows and watching it quite weekly. And we'll get on to Dynamite, but it's a nice little fodder. We'll talk about Rampage quickly. What I've liked about it is it's kind of got its. There's the odd match thrown in for no reason, really. And I've said that sometimes less is more, and perhaps you could take that match away.
Yeah.
that's not really needed, and concentrate on actually Rampage has its own kind of storylines going on, like with Soraya and people like that. And I think that's the good thing sometimes is we do have free shows and the storylines do differ a lot of the time. And I like that because it gives you a bit of variety when watching a show.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. As you say, it's got its own story beats and, some stuff that you wouldn't be necessarily aware of if you weren't watching Dynamite and you weren't watching Collision. So it gives you incentive to watch it and see some of your other characters which you perhaps not seen on a Wednesday, you get to see on a Friday. So yeah, I think it's a pretty solid show. The wrestling's always been good.
Mm,
It could because it's quite an efficient era, isn't it? They
yeah.
tend to get 3 or 4 matches in, and as you say, mixing a bit of story in as well. It really does fly by, and you tend to see some of the guys that, as I say, you just you're accustomed to seeing the likes of Moxley and BCC and
Mm.
the big stars on Dynamite and Collision, but Rampage definitely gives some of the other guys on the roster an opportunity. So I think it's been a pretty strong show for a while now. Kind of going under the radar.
Yeah, it certainly has been. I've enjoyed the last few weeks, but I do sometimes feel that the less is more. People may say that about our content, maybe less can be more. But it's one of those things that, yeah, I do enjoy it. I just wish that sometimes, put that extra 6 minutes that you've given a match with no meaning, and even add 2 minutes extra to each and every match, because that 2 minutes can sometimes be a huge difference when you're actually in the grander scheme of things of the story.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. You never want it to feel that it's rushed.
Mm,
You just want to, you want the performers to have the same opportunity and
yeah,
not just trying to cram. But yeah, when they do it well, it's show of the week sometimes for me. And with it being on a Friday in the States and we get it here, in the middle of the night, so I tend to watch it on a Saturday morning as a bit of like a weekly ritual, and because it's only an hour as well, it
yeah,
doesn't take up too much time. And yeah, I think going back to Dynamite, we had the death match,
yeah.
and it in my head, looking at that was more of a Rampage match potentially, but it did kind of exceed my expectations of it. When I saw that it was the main event for Dynamite, I
Mm.
thought, is that really Matt Taven? Um, is he really Dynamite main event standard? But I was pleasantly surprised. I thought he was really, really good, and it was a match that perhaps in the past we'd have seen on Rampage, but
Mm.
it certainly didn't look out of place in the main event.
It didn't, but we go back to what we've been talking about before, and sometimes placement of
Yeah,
matches, placement of interviews. Would that not have been better? It was a great match. I'm not even gonna, I'm not gonna
yeah.
slate the match. It was a really, really good match. Two great performers in Cassidy and Taven. But do you not think that perhaps, and this is kind of where AEW kind of needs to improve, just where you position things on a
Yeah.
show, because you want the show to go off it, not necessarily always on the cliffhanger, but if you look at even the WWE or even Impact Wrestling, they would do, or TNA, sorry, now, they would do something at the end of the show, which makes, and I always say, which you want to watch, whether it's Collision, whether it's SmackDown, whether it's next week, just because of the how that show finished. And I just feel that TNA, not TNA, Christ almighty, I just feel that AEW just need to work on the positional places of some aspects of their show.
100%, totally agree with you. And as I say, I did enjoy the main event.
Mm.
Once it was all said and done, the show just kind of finished with Cassidy celebrating.
Yeah,
Whereas you had an angle earlier in the night with Adam Copeland and Christian
yeah,
that ended in a no contest, really, which is
yeah,
rare, or a double DQ. I'm not sure what it was officially judged, but it was a no contest essentially.
yeah.
That was frustrating for me. Not that it was a no contest, but I don't mind when they throw them in occasionally because we don't get them very often in AEW.
Mm.
I thought it made sense. But the week before, we got Hangman and Swerve
Yeah.
went to a time limit draw.
Hmm.
The immediate aftermath, we got an announcement that the match at Revolution was going to be a triple threat.
Yeah.
So it was a little bit inconsistent for me that Christian and the patriarchy ruined the match.
Mm.
Was no consequences and there was no follow up. So I'm not necessarily saying that we should be getting a triple threat with Garcia and Copeland against
Mm.
Christian at Revolution. But I just thought it was a bit inconsistent that we didn't get anything. And I think if they would have ended the show that way and we were unsure what's going on, we're more inclined to want to kind of tune in next week and see what the outcome is, what the punishment there is
Mm.
for Christian and the patriarchy. So yeah, I think that should have closed out the show.
Yes.
And also there is a consistency issue there.
Exactly, and I agree that match for me, if I was gonna close it with a match instead of a segment on
Yeah,
Dynamite, that would have been the show. I may have even swatched. I would have said switch those two around, but the
yeah,
opening match was a great. It was like a kind of a technical brawl, for one of the better words.
yeah. Dax and
Moxley
Mox.
and Mock, yeah, and they were that was such. I mean, I loved a lot of times with AEW. They kick off the show with it used to be Orange Cassidy for about 12 consecutive weeks of his random title matches or whatever. And I used to be a
Yeah.
bum. This match for me, it was the perfect match to kick off Dynamite this week.
Yeah, he was. He was a really good match. I mean, my only, again, criticism, if you like, is who won. I
Mhm.
would love to see Dax picking up a win from time to time. I know he's
Yeah,
predominantly known as a tag guy, but we've seen him
yeah,
in a lot of singles matches, and perhaps we need to see Cash in some more singles matches as well. But I'd love one week when Dax is in this situation for him to actually pick up the win.
yeah.
Um, rather than just because he's a tag guy, the other guy goes over. But in terms of match quality,
Mm.
chemistry as well was fantastic. They had a great match and a great way to open Dynamite. I mean, I thought we might have been going for another time limit draw, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
You know, certainly went the distance. Um, but yeah, I don't want to criticize it too much because, as you say, it's a great way to start the show, and AEW does that really well.
They do, yeah. It was a great feud start, really. It's been bubbling, hasn't it? The feud as
Yeah,
such. The only, I suppose, we're going to have to talk about this because it kind of bodes into my question. I don't like sort of talking about stuff outside of AEW, and I know we do that because we have to. It's I wouldn't say it's part of our job, but it's not our job that we're doing. It's just a bit what we do here is just two friends talking wrestling. But the stuff going on outside with Cash Wheeler, the court case, they are bringing charges to him and such what. So obviously there is an element of the unknown there. So do you think that is that playing into it a little bit? I know you were saying you haven't. We're getting the tag matches with FTR, but they're not singly. I'm not saying that that's the reason, but is that also playing into the mindset of AEW a little bit here?
could well be. Yeah, less kind of individual focus on somebody that is kind of in trouble with the law and, as you say, got some charges coming his way. So may well be. I haven't read anything in regards to that, but yeah,
No.
that might be something that's just simmering away in the background. So which is why he's kind of not hidden in tag matches, but yeah, not put out there on his own, you know, in the spotlight as
Yeah.
such. So yeah, that certainly could be. Is that kind of coming up soon? Is it? Is that situation going to be resolved?
Can't remember when, but I know they said they were bringing charges to him, which I suppose I suppose in English terms, that's the Crown Prosecution Service saying that there is a case to answer.
Yeah.
I think I don't know when the trial is set or if there's I don't know what the deal is there, but I know they're progressing forward with the case. So that's what from what's been out there. So there is obviously a case for Mr. Wheeler to answer, so to speak.
Yeah. And I'm not sure if it's so much the possession of the firearm. I think it's more so that he gestured with it, you know, towards
Mm.
somebody.
Yeah,
So it will be interesting to see how the law kind of take a view on that.
yeah,
But hopefully it's fine territory rather than sentence because from a
yeah.
selfish point of view, we don't want to miss FTR for too long on our shows, and obviously we'd like Cash to avoid any prison time. And I'm sure he will. I'm sure he will. But just an unfortunate situation, but hopefully it will all be sorted out before long.
Yeah, I hope so. We're kind of detracting away from a dynamite, but yeah, I hope so. That was the case, and we'll see what happens with that. And there was a couple of tidbits actually about just general news from AEW. One was there's two injuries. Wheeler Yuta and Julia Hart are both currently out of action. I'm not sure when Wheeler's back. I know Julia's meant to be out for the whole of February. It's not going to affect the title, I don't believe, from what I hear. But obviously, it's never nice for people to be sidelined with injuries, especially someone like Julia Hart, who's really come onto her own these last 6 to 8 months.
Yeah, yeah, it's disappointing for her, but as you say, the fact that they haven't really addressed it and she
Mm.
hasn't, they've made a massive deal out of it. Hopefully, it's just a short-term thing, and even she might struggle to get back for Revolution because I think we're only a week or two out.
Two, I think, yeah, 2 weeks away.
So, so that might come too soon for her. But yeah, if she hasn't got to relinquish the title, that's positive because that suggests that it's not going to be long term. In regards to Wheeler, I know he was advertised for a 4-on-4 match against the CMLL guys. The
Mm.
BCC were taking on them on, so I'm not sure when that is. I think that's in Mexico City.
Yeah.
So if that's a few weeks away, then again, hopefully it is something fairly minor and not something that's going to keep Wheeler out for a while. I think Roosh is still injured as well.
Yes.
I
Yeah.
saw an update from him, but again, all being well, not a long-term injury, just
No.
something that I think he actually picked that up during the Continental Classic, um, the tournament. So yeah, hopefully, I think he said Cruiserweight Classic then.
Wrong company, man.
Yeah, 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 but yeah, hopefully El Toro Blanco is on our screens again soon because everyone knows I'm a huge Rouge fan.
Oh, we know. Don't worry. And anyone that knows his channel knows that. We are going to be talking about somebody who will be making his, I suppose, official AEW debut. He's had a couple of matches. That is England's very own Will Ospreay. Just finished up here at the weekend. I've met the guy. Can't say enough great stuff about him. He's going to be an absolute star. But obviously, a big thanks to Will for everything he's done for British wrestling because, we're talking about how great it is right now and how the British wrestling scene and progress and everything like that is on fire. A lot of that is to do with the stuff that Will Ospreay has done for
Oh,
not only just the UK, but taking it over there into the States and giving and Japan, New Japan, and everything that guy has done. If you talk about someone that you when you say how someone absolutely deserves every good thing that happens to him, it's that guy.
oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And for me, absolutely the best wrestler in the world right now. And as an AEW fan, to have Will Ospreay, to have Kenny Omega, to have Bryan Danielson and possibly Kazuchika Okada as well under the same banner, the AEW banner, on top of all the other legends, Hall of Famers, young up and coming wrestlers there, it's such an exciting time to be an AEW fan. There's some negativity that's done.
Mhm.
I'm not particularly high on the product at the minute compared to where I have been in the past.
Yeah,
I said to you before we started recording, I didn't think it was the strongest Dynamite this week, or certainly not compared to the week before. But there's a lot to be excited and about. There's a lot to look forward to. Potential for Will Ospreay to main event Wembley and perhaps even win the AEW title. I know we're getting ahead of ourselves. It's months away yet, but for me, a potential Swerve Ospreay match at Wembley is mouth-watering. But as you say, it's not just the UK scene. He's been in Japan, he's
Mhm.
been in the States. We've seen him at Forbidden Door, we've seen him in AEW in the past,
Yeah,
and I think he's going to have another 5-star match with his stablemate, if you like, Takeshita. Um, I wasn't overly. I mean, when Don Callis made the announcement, he kind of
Mhm.
set it up and said, sometimes brothers fight and he's going to set this match up. So it made sense. And also, Will Ospreay's tying up loose ends in Japan and obviously in the UK. You saw his
Yeah,
match against Oku last night. So
yeah,
they didn't really have an opportunity to build too much in terms of a story for a match.
yeah.
I suppose it makes sense from that. An AEW would want him on the Revolution straight away. So
Mm.
it's going to be a great match. It's interesting to me what happened in the follow up to that, whether Ospreay is going to remain with the Don Callis family.
Yeah,
Mark Davies also makes a return to join Carl Fletcher, and they all stay part of that family with Will Hobbs and you know, as say Takeshita, or whether Will Ospreay goes out on his own. Be interested. I don't think he needs a faction, a stable. I think he's quite capable, and he could be a real top baby face on his own. Or whether he's going to stay with the heelish Don Callis family. So that's interesting. I think it's going to be as a standalone match. It's going to be great, but it's what
Yeah.
comes out of that I'm really interested in. That might tell us the short-term future for Ospreay and AEW.
Yeah, definitely so. I agree with the match. The match is going to be awesome. Interesting the way the story pans out. I was quite surprised by the announcement of the match initially. You say Don Callis that they're all together, so why would they do that unless there was going to be a payoff, i.e., Osprey potentially going on his own? Don't know. Do you think now? Obviously, Osprey's finished up over here. He's finished up in Japan. Would you have him on Dynamite, say this week or next week, or would you savor his debut solely for Revolution?
I'd just bring him out of Revolution, but what I personally do, I'd sow a bit of dissension in the story. I'd
Mhm.
have Callis saying that he's been trying to get in touch with Will Ospreay, but he's not picking up his calls.
Yeah.
Or, but it's probably just because he's in the UK and the time different. Something, to that effect that
Yeah.
Ospreay hasn't been in touch. So when he turns up at Revolution, you're unsure of which way it's going to play out. Is he part of the family? Is he not? Is he looking to move on from the family? Now he's in AEW full time. Be an interesting one. So that's what I'd do. I wouldn't, as much as I'm a huge fan of Osprey, I don't think it brings too much to the story, bringing him in on Dynamite, having him standing there with the rest of the Don Callis family. I
Mm.
think just hit his theme music, and the next time we should see him will be at the pay-per-view, all being well.
Yeah, I hope so. Maybe give him a 2 weeks to rest up because he's been busy as hell recently finishing
Yeah,
up.
and it's going to be a big transitional period in his life as well. Obviously, got his partner and their kid over here in the UK. They're not going to be moving over there, I don't think.
No.
So he'll be commuting back and forth, which is probably the reason why AEW was so appealing for him, because we know that the WWE were interested. Not sure if there were talks or discussions or an offer made, but I think the AEW suited his life and his family setup. So yeah, I would like to think he'll have some family time the next few weeks, and then kick on with the next stage of his career. And say we see him as the best wrestler in the world. I know a lot of people do, stateside and in the UK, but it will be great for him to have that opportunity on a global platform, on a television show that's beamed all around the world, week in, week out, for him to prove that. And for anybody that has been living under a rock, or hasn't seen much of Will Ospreay, they're going to see the very best of him because he's still in his prime. Absolutely. I'm not sure his age, but
30.
well, there you go. He's got another at least 10 years at the very top of the industry. At the very least, we've seen wrestlers such as Sting in his 60s, having his last match at Revolution. Ospreay's less than half his age. So it's an exciting time, not just for AEW fans, for wrestling fans, because the matches that we're going to see over the next few years featuring Will Ospreay, every single one of them are marquee matches.
Absolutely. And good luck to Will. Not that you need it and not that you care that we're saying it, but honestly, good luck. And we'll be following it definitely every single week. We'll be reviewing it when he comes on, and we'll obviously go into All In. So and I will be there this year. Heart or no heart, I'll be there. And hopefully we'll see him win some gold. I want to quickly just make a mention because those of you that watched Wardlow's match this past week on AEW would have seen a very familiar face that somebody who we have had on this very channel, Barrett Brown, uh, very very quickly was demolished by Wardlow. Let's be honest, it was a squash match, but
Yeah.
it brought a wry smile to my face seeing the Bullet Club War Dog Barrett Brown, especially we interviewed him. Cool. And this is probably about 8 months, 9 months ago. And
Yeah.
when I saw him, I was like, I know you're probably going to lose this, but I'm just so happy for him.
Yeah, yeah, it's great. I'm not sure what the state of play with Zach is at the minute.
He's on
Um,
Ring of Honor at the minute.
yeah, but yeah, like, say people that we've had
Yeah.
conversations with and interviewed on our little podcast to be on that platform of being on AEW Dynamite. It's just fantastic, and he didn't do himself any harm. I think he filled the role quite well. I think everybody assumed what was going to happen, and it did. Um, I wasn't crazy on that segment, to be honest. I wasn't really sure why Adam Cole was at commentary and he didn't say anything and he left. I'm not really. I think they've dropped the ball to a degree with
Of course.
the Kingdom,
Yeah.
the Undisputed Kingdom. As much as we mentioned earlier in this, Matt Taven didn't do himself any harm, and
Yeah.
I haven't seen too much of him. I know at the time when he was Ring of Honor champion, it was a little bit controversial, and some people weren't behind it. But I think everybody did appreciate that he was a good wrestler. But we haven't really seen too much of him in AEW. We've seen more in Ring of Honor. And he's been a bit of a bit part. He's been a bit of one of the goons. As part of the Devil
Mm.
storyline. Um, but we haven't really seen him go out there and have an opportunity to have a singles match. So I think he did pretty well this week. But my overall opinion of the Undisputed Kingdom, I think it's been very, very missable, to be honest. It just hasn't landed. I mean, the stuff that they were involved in prior to the reveal with Bullet Club and the Acclaimed, there's just never really been any payoff to it. Um, Bit disjointed for me. I'm not sure. Perhaps they're going with this story that, you know, Adam Cole's just backing Wardlow and he's expecting him to hand over either the title or a title opportunity at some point.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure what your opinion is of it, but I haven't been a fan.
Uh, yeah, I'm very much like you. I feel as if it was such a great build up, and
Yeah.
even the reveal was great. Even though we kind of knew where it was going, it was just a case of who was it with him. Um, and then it's just died for me, and I'm really, as you say, Matt Taven done a great job, or Taven, whatever in the main event was really great with Orange. I've just lost interest already. And I don't know if it's because Adam Cole's injured and he can't do, because he's the main guy in this, isn't he? It's him, it's
Yeah.
his group that and for me, it just feels like there's nothing to it at the minute because he's not ready. And obviously, MJF's not there either. And not that
Yeah.
I'm in a way, I'm kind of glad MJF's obviously he's got injured, so he needs to take that time away and heal up and rehab and whatever else, but it definitely just died. And because there was no straight payoff, they didn't go instantly and target a check. They didn't target Joe for argument's sake. I know they were working with Joe as part of the storyline, but they never straight away targeted him, or they just sort of gone, yes, I'm the devil, and then that's it. Um,
Yeah.
I want to see
And
more. I
the
want to be
antics that
invested.
they were doing, like attacking people, I know they
Mm,
were under the masks before, but
yeah,
they just completely stopped doing anything of interest for me.
yeah,
They just come out in their t-shirts and they've not really got too much of a purpose. And I know Roderick's going to be in a match against Orange at Revolution, so
yeah.
there's been a slow build towards that and quite a long build really towards that match. And I think that they'd probably argue that the involvement with Taven and Orange, that was all part of that story, but I just don't think it's been told particularly well. Does anybody really think Roderick Strong's going to beat Orange at Revolution? I'm not sure.
I don't
A
know.
few weeks initially, I just said yes, but just the
Mm,
way that the story's played out the last few weeks, I'm just expecting Orange to retain now.
yeah, I'm
Um,
not sure. I'll kind of with you at first. When it first got announced, I was
yeah,
like, I think Roddy's going to do it. But yeah, you're right. I'm a bit in the middle of this.
just
I'm
got
not.
off the boil, hasn't it?
Yeah, hopefully it can pick it back up and it will all be good again. But at the moment, as you say, it's kind of a fumble at the minute. But
Yeah,
hopefully
just
they can still put it into a catch.
what they were doing like back in the summer and the fall of 2023 were a lot more vignettes and bits and pieces involving the kingdom, involving Adam Cole. I know it was a different story, and it was when Adam Cole first got the injury.
Mm-hmm.
But we had a lot of stuff like that kept the stories moving along. And I do think in general at the minute, AEW are lacking a little bit in that, in terms of catching people up. When I watch WWE, which isn't as much as I watch AEW,
Mm-hmm.
but I feel like if you, and perhaps WWE fans that watch Week Out will say there's too much recapping, but if you haven't watched or if you're new to the product, they do a really, really good job of telling you what's been going on and why. And I think sometimes with AEW, if I was a new fan and I just turned it on for the first time, I wouldn't have a clue what was going on. Now, I think they can improve in that department. I think they can have little video packages and little continuity bits that just help, you know, help tell their stories, help pad them out a little bit more, and help make everything make sense a little bit more. And I think that's what they could be doing. If they're not, Adam Cole obviously isn't ready to make an in-ring return, but there's definitely stuff that he could be doing other than just sitting on the commentary at the commentary table and not saying anything, which is what happened on Dynamite.
Certainly did. Let's call it a fumble, but they can still bring it
Yeah.
into the catch. We'll see
Yeah.
what happens with them. There was a nice timeless Tony Storm and Diona skip, which was quite funny. We'll
Yeah.
gloss over that because their match is coming up in a couple of weeks, and then I think they're just building towards Mercedes coming in anyway. Um,
Yeah.
the Young Bucks coming wearing their suits. I think one of them looked like the lead singer of Nickelback during the entrance. The interesting bit for this wasn't necessarily the match with Top Flight, massive offense change from the Young Bucks. And I think that's going with their new persona. They're not going to do these crazy stuff. And to be fair, they're 40 odd years old, So the good thing is they are cutting down the offense. But the more part of this was the interesting bit was the promo that Darby Allin cut, which apparently gained some heat. I don't know. That was just what we've heard. Because he said there was at least back in the day there was at least one EVP with his head screwed on. That
Yeah.
Cody. But nevertheless, the Young Bucks are going. Obviously, Sting and Darby are going against the Young Bucks at Revolution, which was great. I mean, he did call it. I think did he sort of sound to be all friends wrestling as well? Or did he not use that line? And I think that line was something that Cornette actually had used in the past on his podcast when he was talking about AEW. But what about the just generally the Young Bucks new offense going well with their character, and it's nice to have that change in them, though, isn't it?
I absolutely love the Young Bucks new characters. They've
Hmm.
really doubled down on the evil EVPs. I think it's been just really funny stuff. I think some great heel work. I'm really, really looking forward to the match with Sting and Darby at Revolution. I think it's going to be a perfect send off for Sting in terms of the Young Bucks don't have a bad match on paper, but they don't have a bad match. I mean, I know for some people their style isn't for everyone. The purists perhaps don't don't want to see so many super kicks or the lack of selling. They always have great wrestling matches, and fans of AEW are huge fans of the Young Bucks. So I think to have Sting's last match is going to be great. In terms of what Darby said,
Hmm.
I, again, I think it was a mistake. I really do. I mean, to kind of cut a promo which sort of encouraged the fans to chant Cody's name. You know, I mean, WWE perhaps don't see AEW as competition, but AEW are the second biggest company in America.
Yeah.
They are, the talent they've got, the finances they've got, the infrastructure, the fact that they've got three shows, the fact that they're, book stadiums and for the second year they've booked Wembley Stadium here. They're the second biggest company. Um, why why they feel the need to kind of I don't know, focus on the top star in WWE rather than what they're doing themselves. I mean, and it was so avoidable as well. I heard Tommy Dreamer talking on Busted Open about it, and very easily there, Darby, rather than say the EVP, he could have said, "I've got a boss that backed me,"
Yeah.
and turn that onto Tony Khan. That could have been a Tony chant, couldn't it?
Yeah.
And all that was very it was a very strange choice for me. And to criticize Brandon Cutler as well, I thought that was a little bit unnecessary. I know what he was going for,
Yeah.
and it's right. Brandon Cutler probably did only get a job in AW because of his friendship with the Young Bucks. Um, but I don't know. Didn't I didn't like it. I would rather he hadn't have said it. And as I say, I would rather he would have just changed a few words, as Tommy Dreamer said, to get the crowd chanting for AEW, or he could have even said Kenny Omega. He didn't have to go there. And I just don't understand. I don't understand the need for it, to be honest. What did you think when you heard the AEW fans shouting Cody after
I
this?
just kind of think that I know you said that WWE probably don't class AEW as comedy. I just think they just sat there with a big grin,
Yeah,
and you know, it's not it's not about competition anymore. AEW, and it shouldn't be about a war, and it shouldn't be about one putting the other out of business. And we've gone through all that in the past, and people seem to forget that when you just had one, it was bad.
yeah,
And look, fans will be fans. If you fans will love AEW, will love AEW. Fans will love WWE, love WWE. I'm not going to get into the tribalism bit because it gets on my nerves. But when I think they use this line in the Attitude Era. When one show used to say things about the other, you were kind of basically paying them a compliment.
yeah,
Something along those lines. And I didn't think it was necessary. I think you said was right. They could have tweaked. You could have tweaked that line. You could have said Tony Khan. You could have said Kenny
yeah,
Omega. But maybe as you say, I get why he said it. I just think, and especially with all the stuff going on with Cody, wrong time to
yeah,
even go and say it. Wrong time, big time, wrong time.
yeah. And in his defense, in Darby's defense, in AEW's defense, they are very honest and upfront with
Yep.
stuff like, they don't insult the intelligence of the fans. So perhaps that's what he was going for. He kind of, by alluding to the situation and the fact that he got a job,
Hmm.
and it was because of Cody, people knew the truth of the matter, so he didn't want to spin it so that it was something that was untruthful. Um, and maybe he never expected. I mean, there was always the risk as well. When Cody was in AEW, he got booed a hell of a lot towards
Yep.
the end. We don't know how much that influenced his decision to leave, or we just don't know. It's speculation. But it could have got Derby booed. It could have had the reverse. It could have had the opposite effect. When we mention of Cody, even like not even mentioning by name, just exactly what he said could have led the audience, the AEW faithful, to boo Derby, which again would have been problematic given the fact that the Young Bucks just attacked Sting and the Sun, and there was no mention of it. It was
Yep.
quite a despicable act at the end of last week's Dynamite for
Yeah.
Bucks to appear with baseball bats, took out Sting, took out Darby, took out Sting's lads. Um, there was no mention of it, and I would rather Darby talk about that a little bit more than what he did actually reference in terms of the Cody stuff. So yeah, strange one, but really looking forward to the match.
Yeah.
Really enjoying the Young Bucks' change in personality. And yeah, it'd be interesting to see once that match is done and dusted. We know we're not going to get a rematch or anything. It's not going to be
Yep.
like a long story or a series of matches. Um, Either way, if Sting and Darby win and relinquish the titles, or if they lose and the Bucks take the championship, it'll be interesting to see what's next for the Bucks as well. Because there's so much stuff they can do with it. There's so much material. There's so much potential for this version of the Young Bucks. To go against you know young teams, established teams, revisit feuds, FTR. There's a lot of stuff there that I'd be definitely interested in seeing the Young Bucks in over the summer.
Indeed, me too. And we won't have long to find out. 2 weeks. Is it a week Saturday or a week Sunday? I can't remember. One of the two days. I think it's the third. I think it's a week Sunday.
I've got to admit, I did think that they left it a bit late, and Sting and Darby could have perhaps had the
Yeah.
titles longer.
Mm.
But I'm going into Revolution, and I'm not sure which way it's going to go. Hopefully, we'll get a chance to do a prediction show before Revolution. But right now, I can't tell you which way I'll go with it because, as I say, I'm under no illusion that this is Sting's last match. I think
Yeah.
the the amount of time they've built towards it now. That I mean, the announcement was made November time, I think it was. Certainly, you know, before Christmas. So to go back on that now after it, I just don't think they're going to do that. I think it is legitimately Sting's last
Yeah.
match, but I don't think that means that the Bucks are just going to win the titles because of that. Um, you could certainly see Sting going out as a winner and relinquishing the titles on Dynamite because just because he's not wrestling anymore doesn't mean he can't appear. And
Exactly.
I'm sure there'll be some kind of goodbye on Dynamite following Revolution, regardless of which way it goes. But yeah, it's a coin toss for me at the minute, mate. I'm not sure who's going to win that match, and that's what I really enjoy. That's when, for me, wrestling's at its best, when you're going into these particularly pay-per-views and premium live events and WWE, and it's unpredictable. It's not a guarantee who's going to win.
Exactly that, and yes, of course, we can find time for a prediction show, Dave. It's the week before. We'll find time for it now. You've mentioned it, but we'll definitely find time for it to go on. Rampage now.
Yeah,
I kind of mentioned this before that was sometimes less is more and what have you. And Rampage was really marred this week by an injury during a match. So the first match actually on Rampage was Sammy Guevara, Jeff Hardy, no DQ. Um, it didn't. I mean, the highs have been going on a heel turnish run. Hadn't been on Rampage, I don't think, for a couple of weeks. This match gets announced, no DQ, and generally, I think Jeff's matches now need to be like that anyway. Um, but during the match, Sammy Guevara goes for, I think it was a senton or a 450 off the top rope.
450.
He, yeah, knees Jeff Hardy. It's clear as day. It goes straight into his face. He's out for the count, and he's legitimately knocked out
Yeah, it broke his nose.
and broke his nose in the process.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure if it was the same referee that was in charge of another match that happened. This happened to on AEW. I can't remember, but the referee, the match, and it continued, and it was, and he'd done a medical check and all of that stuff, and the match did continue. It was very rushed at that point, and so Sammy went on to pick up the victory. I have a big problem personally with that match continuing. And I
Yeah.
don't care what any, even if Jeff gave him the yes, or I'm not, the moment that move had hit, I'm calling that match off because I know that there's something has happened, that there was a landing there. It looked awful. Jeff Hardy is out for the count, and you can tell, in my opinion, that match should not have continued any further than it did.
Couldn't agree more. And not only was it quite obvious and quite
Yeah.
apparent what happened. The ref was looking right. I can't remember what ref it was, but there was blood everywhere as well. Because as
Mhm.
I say, Matt Hardy confirmed on his podcast that Jeff was going for more tests, but he had broke his nose for the
Yeah.
first time. Believe it or not, Jeff Hardy never broke his nose before.
Sounds quite amazing, really, doesn't it?
Yeah. Matt broke his, I think he said 5 or 6 times, but Jeff had never broke his. So there was a visual sign as well that something had gone really drastically wrong.
Mhm.
And I think for the ref to kind of call a knockout, or was be an easy thing to do, and Jeff could get
Yeah.
that attention. When it comes to head injuries, there's just not a second to lose.
Yeah.
Uh, so I couldn't agree with you more, mate. I think Sammy's got a bit of flack online
Yeah.
as well because he's been involved in a few of these kind of injury situations. Funnily enough, he had one with Matt Hardy
Yeah.
years ago.
That might have been the match I was thinking of, when they continued that match when they shouldn't have done. It might have been that very match, actually.
Yeah. Matt's head hit the concrete, didn't it? I think
Busted
they
it wide, didn't he?
backstage. Yeah.
Yeah, that was it. You're now, no, it was that match, and I think that match should have been called off, and that continued.
Yeah. So I don't think Sammy Guevara is dangerous in my
No,
opinion. It's a high risk move.
exactly.
The placement was slightly off. I know Jeff has raised his knees to come to the 450, which
Hmm.
I'm not sure, I'm not sure a 450 to be counted with raised knees. I'd rather Jeff would have moved out of the way.
Yeah,
But I'm no wrestler or producer, they know better than me. But I think maybe it could have been avoided if they'd have simplified that rather than raise knees. I think if a splash or something like that, a frog splash, just a top rope splash,
hmm,
can be counted with knee. When you've got 450 and you've got two revolutions of somebody
yeah,
above you in the air, I don't know. A knee in the wrong place there could have been, drastically caused drastic problem for Sammy.
yeah,
So yeah, unfortunate, absolutely an accident. And we wish Jeff all the best with his recovery. Hope he's not out for too long because
yeah,
this story with the heel turn, it is actually, starting to hot up a bit, and
yeah,
there's some intrigue there as to see what way the Hardys go. We haven't really seen a heel Hardy Boys before.
No,
We've seen Jeff as a heel, we've seen Matt as a heel, we've seen different things in different promotions, but to see them as a heel tag team, I'm not so sure that we've seen too much of that,
no.
or that at all. So hopefully he's not out for too long. But yeah, totally agree with you, mate. Match should have been stopped as soon as it happened.
Definitely so. Bigger and better things. Last few weeks, and I think even last time I spoke to you, I said AEW need to do two things. One, give Queen Anamata a win, and two, sign her. They've done it both.
Yes.
She won on Rampage this week against Anna Jay. She got signed properly by AEW. Thank God for that. Richly deserved. She's been a highlight of Rampage, to be honest. I know she's been on the other shows as well, but predominantly her matches have been on Rampage. Great to see her get the win, and obviously a really great news that she's signed permanently with AEW.
Yeah, we're expecting Mercedes Moné in at big business,
Hmm.
but I think Queen Aminata is absolutely one for not just the future, one for the present. We've seen a lot of her in recent weeks, and I think it must have been such an easy decision for Tony Khan to offer her a contract and get her signed up. Similar to Brian Keith, two performers that have come in and really, really impressed a lot of people and slotted straight into the roster. And I was glad she picked up that elusive first win because, as you
Yeah,
say, we saw a lot of her, but she's had her shoulders counting down to the mat for three more often than, well, on every occasion. I don't know if she's submitted, but she hasn't won a match, but she has now. So hopefully she can kick on from that and we can see her, if not in the women's title picture, in the TBS title picture once Julia comes back. She's somebody
yeah.
that definitely, is a star in the making for AEW.
Definitely so. There was a little bit with Angelo Parker and Ruby Soho. He's taking on a drink next week on Rampage. That's going to be Brian Cage and Hook as well next week. I don't know if that's going to be on Dynamite or Rampage or Collision, but that's happening next week, which would be an interesting one.
Well, we've got the
Um,
six man next week, haven't we? We've got Joe,
yes.
Swerve, and Brian Cage against Hook, RVD, and Hangman.
And funnily enough, Hook's being advertised for the 420 show on the
Yeah.
20th of April. And if you know what 420 means, you know why it's funny and you know why RVD's been announced. But yes, that six man has been announced as well. Also, the main event this week, it was a bit of a cluster. Bang Bang Scissor Gang, Dark Order, Jay Lethal, Satnam Singh Chat. I mean, this was just a match to get everyone on the card, wasn't it? A match.
I think so. I think so. Again, similar to the Undisputed Kingdom, Bang Bang Scissor Gang,
Yeah.
seemed like I don't know. I'm not sure. I thought it was quite funny and I didn't mind it when they joined forces, but as you say, just I think a more interesting story would be them going against each other, and
Yeah.
maybe that's what we'll get, or we get some kind of unification for the trios titles. Um, yeah, I agree. Again, I agree. I've agreed with you a lot tonight, but
I know.
just an excuse to get them on the card without any great level of storytelling. And as I say, I think that is a byproduct as well of not paying off the Undisputed Kingdom feud.
Yeah.
It's made, isn't it, really? You've got, the six of them, but if Daddy Ass kind of takes a backseat for the terms of that feud, you've got 5-on-5 potential when Adam Cole's back. Certainly got 4-on-4 potential right now. And we just haven't seen it. Whereas Wardlow, the Kingdom, and Roddy against the Guns and the Acclaimed, for example, or yeah, a bit lackluster. I don't. We've obviously missing Juice as well, and I
Hmm.
think he's a huge miss. Actually, I've
Yeah.
really missed Juice. He was one of my favourite performers, um, and I'm looking forward to him coming back. So maybe the injuries have really disrupted a lot of the stories because they
Yeah.
were doing a much better job. But I just think last few weeks it's been a bit disjointed. I don't understand why Hangman's teaming with RVD and Hook. I thought that he turned heel. I know
Hmm.
it wasn't a kind of, a double cross or anything like that, but I thought that match with Swerve, we saw like an organic double turn where Swerve was a face, but when he's in a heel group, I suppose that's problematic. Brian Cage and the Gates of Agony are heels. So the heel and face dynamics are out for me as well. So again, I don't want to be too hard on the company that I love, but there was just a lot of stuff on last week's Dynamite and in the last, you know, yeah, the last week or so that I just think they can do better. And I would love them to get somebody like a Scott D'Amore in to help with the creativity. I think I think now is the time. I think they or Tony Khan needs to kind of relinquish a little bit of the control. He's got people in place there. He's got some great wrestling minds, but I think to bring Scott D'Amore in a creative capacity could be game changing for the company.
I don't know whether you are a mind reader, Dave, but I was literally going to say before we sign off of the show and before we finish talking about AEW, and this wasn't AEW related, but you brought it into conversation perfectly. So you must be really good at mind reading today. What was your, because I spoke about it on the Impact review I done 2 weeks ago. I think it was 2 weeks ago. I haven't done the Impact review yet this week. So yes, it would have been 2 weeks ago. Scott D'Amore leaving TNA wrestling. There's been some things about it. He was trying to buy the company. They weren't going to invest the monies in the right areas that he thought. Obviously, we don't know the ins and outs truthfully, and we don't know how. I mean, how big of a loss is. We know apparently Talent have sent a letter in to TNA to say, we want him back and all this stuff. You mentioned him going to AEW, but what was your original thoughts? I know you messaged me when you saw it, but what was your original thoughts on him actually leaving TNA?
I was hugely shocked, hugely shocked. I think Scott D'Amore has been a paramount in the s- strong, past couple of years, really, in TNA. They've really, put on some good shows, some good stories, really steadied the ship because there was a time when we thought they might be disappearing and the company might
Yeah.
be, you know, no longer existing. And I just thought he'd been instrumental in that. It seemed like the talent, as you say, if they've wrote a letter in, or it certainly felt like the talent was absolutely behind him. I spoke to Decay a few
Yeah,
weeks back,
he did.
and they had really nice things to say about Scott D'Amore as well, and just the overall feel, the locker room, the people that they've brought in. He's been instrumental in all of that. So I was hugely surprised that they would sack him. Or yeah, they did, didn't they? They released him,
Terminate, yeah, it's the same thing. It's just what we
terminated his
call it over
contract.
here in England.
I think my mom, unfortunately, because of all the Vince stuff, I was a little bit, what's happened? Is there
Yeah,
something that's gone on that has led to it? Which I don't believe that's the case. As you say, from everything we've read and everything that's been reported from Fightful and other, respectful sources, there was just a little bit of a clash of opinion, or difference of opinion in terms of what needed to be done and what areas needed investment, and how we wanted the company to operate. And yeah, at some point it's been the decision's been made that it wasn't, you know, was no longer an option for him to stay in his position, which again, hugely sad. Wouldn't surprise me if he ended up back there. But as I say, it was in a selfish way. I want TNA to absolutely prosper and keep going from strength to strength
yeah.
with or without Scott D'Amore. But if he's not going to be there, then I think AEW would be an ideal spot for him. And as I say, I think AEW need it. I think they need that help in that creative department. I mean, some of the video packages and the different things that we've seen in Impact over the past, year or two. Just the way they've done things, the vignettes and the teases with. I mean, the Eric Young one was fantastic as well. When he's on the bike, just all of those little bits and pieces that we've seen a bit more. We saw stuff with Darby Allin and Hook, and we're not seem to be getting those video packages and those supplementary um things that they can do to help tell stories, and I think he's proven that he's really good at that. So. Yeah, sad for TNA, really sad for the TNA fans and obviously the talent there because they obviously thought a great deal of Scott D'Amore. But I'm sure he won't be without a job for too long.
Yeah, exactly. And I said the same thing on the review show, and I'll say it now. Just let it plan out because the worst thing you can do for TNA right now is drop it. It doesn't, you need to give it that opportunity to still thrive, to still succeed.
Yeah.
You're a fan of it. You're a fan of it, no matter who's in there. And this isn't a hit at them or anything. I think he's done an incredible job. He was absolutely fantastic, and I was just as surprised as you was to see him go. But keep getting behind TNA, keep getting behind AEW, keep getting behind WWE, keep getting behind British wrestling. Just get behind everything. The British wrestling, for the main thing, for those of you over here in the UK, British wrestling is absolutely thriving at the moment, no matter what
Yeah.
promotion that you work, what promotion that you go to, what wrestling that you see, every time you are seeing the stars of the future that may well end up on those bigger companies, not say bigger companies, that's a bit of a disrespect to the British wrestling community, but you will see the stars like the Ospreys and people like that. And we can reel off names, but you will be part of their early journey, and to see them now, to help British wrestling, to sell it out, to do anything that you can do to go and watch your local wrestling companies. Watch
Yeah.
the stars of the future be made over here in the UK, and obviously enjoy wrestling in general,
They,
whatever.
they, the British wrestling has produced some incredible national stars, but then they get those opportunities in TNA and AEW and
Yeah.
WWE, and they become worldwide stars. It's just the way it is. It's kind of the food chain in wrestling. It is a kind of aspiration for a lot of British wrestlers to go over to the States and establish themselves there, or Japan, which is exactly what Will Ospreay did. As you say, going back to TNA, it's just one person that's left, and
Yeah.
the company's still in fantastic shape, and the roster they've got is incredible there.
Mhm.
So absolutely, we'll be supporting TNA, and hopefully, as you say, if there is some kind of resolution with the Scott Demore situation, hopefully everyone can move on from it, and the company doesn't suffer, and they keep going from strength to strength because they've done such a great job. And I think really now they're at the stage where, with a bit of investment, and that they perhaps are competing with AEW. They're on that type of level potentially. They've haven't had the Tony Khan billions in the bank, haven't they? And
No.
they've had to build things up slowly, and be quite shrewd and get the right talent in. But they've done such a great job, and Impact is a highlight of a lot of wrestling fans' week each and every week.
So then highlight one of my
Yeah, yeah.
week anyway. Let's finish up with some guests that we've got coming on this week. We're going to be a part of the one man band, or at least he's going to be coming a part of us for a couple of hours or so. Heath Slater, Heath Miller, whatever you want to call him, he'll be coming on the show. Got some nice bits to talk to him about. I've got a theory I want to run past him as well, which will be interesting. Obviously, we've got the usual review shows. I've already mentioned a lot of times on this show already. I'm going to myself and Rachel be at Twisted Metal for at least it's Progress this week's Progress Wrestling. Get yourself down to there. We've got we're doing superstar spotlights, which is where we give a spotlight to an up and coming UK independent wrestling talent. The first one of those will be going out this week, actually, with Dow Thompson. He'll be going on Dow Johnson. Sorry, Thompson. Jesus, Thompson Johnson. Dow Johnson will be going out on Wednesday. Um, we will also be doing a ringside view next week. That'll be Slam Masters, who get ready to go back to the banking hall with former WWE superstar Leo Rush, which will be a great show. Get yourself down there. 50 tickets remaining for that. So get yourself down to the banking hall in Cardiff. I will be there, just not at that show. I will be attending another show that they'll be doing in Cardiff later on in the year. On top of that, our interview with, which was a great interview, by the way, with ODB, former knockout champion, will be airing next week as well. She was a bundle of fun. She hasn't changed one bit from what you see on on TNA, so that was a bundle of fun. But the next superstar spotlight coming up, who'll be interviewing is David Francisco. He's Revolution Pro talent at the minute and an independent wrestling talent. Also, then superstar spotlight after that will be a man that had an incredible match with Luke Jacobs this week. JJ Gale will be coming on as well. And then we've got some big, I'd say big, I don't mean that disrespectfully to the people that I've just mentioned, but we have some really big former WWE names coming on. None more so than the former Intercontinental Champion and UFC Hall of Famer Ken Shamrock, which is going to be Huge one for that's going to be a really interesting crossover with UFC and WWE, and maybe what he's doing next. And funny enough, when we talk about what people are doing next, ODB dropped a little hint on the podcast, so just keep a lookout for that next week. And then finally, the next one I can say. Sorry, there is only one left at this stage. Oh no, there's two. Ringside View, we'll be recording another Ringside View this coming Wednesday before Heath with the International Wrestling Network. Billy Wood will join us on there. And then finally, the last podcast I can say with an interview to it will be that of the former multiple time, wherever he's gone, the guy's won more tag team titles than people have won matches. One half of the Dudley Boys, my brother Testify. Devon Dudley will be getting a table at least and joining us by putting his laptop on the table and speaking to us on the show. But Dave, as always, it's been fantastic chopping some wrestling up with you, my friend. Also, sorry, I will end this eventually. Ignite Full Throttle, April 21st. Get down there. James Ellis coming from Brilliance Country to take on Smashing Mike for our Hitting the Turnbuckle Championship. And after that, we're full throttle all the way to Buckle Up on July the 14th. And trust me when I tell you, when I said that the tagline was bigger, badder, better, it's going to be that. It is just going to be just that. But Dave, thank you very much. As always, it's been great talking some wrestling with you. We will do this probably again next week when we'll have Collision to add to the mix. But thank you as ever. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Guys, this has been an AEW. Well, it's been all kind of wrestling talk really on this show. But as it is an AEW related show, I leave the goodbye to Mr. Dave Robinson.
Thanks, mate. Well, it's time to bid you all adieu, goodbye, mwah, and good night. Bang.
And stay safe, everybody.